Iran, 1951. After years of foreign governments controlling their oil fields, they looked to take back their natural resources.
Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalizes the Iranian oil industry, previously controlled by the British.
England had spent millions to develop this oil, expropriated by Mossadegh.
He simply wanted a fair deal, but the British and United States didn't want that deal. They wanted their deal. Then Operation Ajax in 1953 was put together.
That operation is carried out by the CIA's top operative in Tehran, Kermit Roosevelt, who orchestrates a coup to replace Mossadegh with Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a former exiled monarch also known as the Shah.
Climaxing a contest for rule, the Shah of Iran returned to Tehran.
What followed then was Mossadegh went into exile, he passed away under house arrest, and Shah started to rule with an iron fist.
For the next 20 years, the Shah and the United States grew still closer.
The White House is ablaze as the Shah and his lovely queen arrive for a state dinner.
Until in the 1970s, Iran became America's strongest ally in the Persian Gulf. At one point, even the single biggest purchaser of American weapons. Americans and Iranians were experiencing a love affair.
I do not remember any request we made of him that he refused.
The United States saw Iran as an important partner for energy, and the Shah saw the United States as a very important partner for Iran's security.
4 years later, in 1957, the U.S. helped establish the Shah's brutal secret police known as Savak, so brutal that Amnesty International named Iran one of the world's worst violators of human rights.
And to make matters worse, President Jimmy Carter, known for his human rights initiatives, welcomes the Shah to the White House in 1977.
And he toasted the Shah of Iran and said this:
Iran, because of the great leadership of the Shah, is an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world.
It was just a few minutes ago that the word reached here on Shah Reza Street that the Shah had finally left the country.
After months of protests against his rule, the Shah leaves Iran for exile on January 16, 1979.
About 2 weeks later, this guy arrives back in Iran.
Would you be so kind as to tell us how you feel about being back in Iran?
Meanwhile, a cancer-ridden Shah travels from country to country seeking a temporary residence and medical care before President Carter reluctantly grants him asylum in the United States.
President Carter was hesitant to allow the Shah into the United States because it would cause backlash in Iran, and he was right.
The U.S. Embassy in Tehran has been invaded and occupied by Iranian students.
The Iranians had fought U.S. Marine Guards for 3 hours for control of the embassy. The American hostages were blindfolded, handcuffed, and marched out on the U.S. Embassy's front steps by the revolutionary students.
For the next 444 days, 52 Americans are held captive in what becomes known as the Iranian hostage crisis.
The chance for the United States to return Shah to Iran and to expect as a price that we will send these people into the United States.
I am ordering that we discontinue purchasing of any oil from Iran for delivery to this country.
This crisis sealed President Carter's chances of ever being re-elected because this was on daily TV. It was seen by millions of Americans daily, and it showed how Iran was winning, and America couldn't let that just happen.
Less than a year later, Iraq invades Iran, hoping to take advantage of the revolutionary chaos, and it ignites the Iran-Iraq War.
Iranian shells are now raining ever nearer the Iraqi positions.
When Iran seemed to be winning the war, America tilted towards Iraq.
It wasn't just a tilt toward Iraq, it was an opening of the floodgates.
Throughout the 8-year war, the U.S. supplied Saddam Hussein and his Iraqi army with intelligence reports, billions of dollars, military technology, even chemical weapons to fight the Iranians.
An Iranian jetliner shot down by a U.S. warship in the Persian Gulf. 290 passengers and crew killed.
This man lost 5 members of his family. He found 3 of the bodies here. His shock is deep.
Well, I think it was an understandable accident. The shoot and think that they were under attack from that plane.
The United States never apologizes for the incident. Nearly 3 decades later, the attack continues to color Iranian leaders' views towards America.
As America never apologized for the incident, it seemed to just fuel their hate towards the USA, and shooting down the airline was on top of their list as number 1.
Although Iran pursued refining uranium since the 1950s, with help at times from both the United States and Russia, it wasn't until the mid-2000s that Iran stepped up its efforts to develop nuclear power.
Iran aggressively pursues these weapons and exports terror, while an unelected few repress the Iranian people's hope for freedom.
And then in 2010, a computer bug attacked Iran's nuclear facility.
The virus secretly records data of the reactor working properly and plays that back while it's destroying the plant, so operators think everything is okay.
The United States and Iran have a meeting, and some of the terms laid out are Iran will be removed from the sanctions list for disabling their nuclear program. And then in 2013, a new president in Iran comes to power and negotiations become more serious.
This first step will provide the most far-reaching insight and view of Iran's nuclear program that the international community has ever had.
After about 2 years of negotiation with the new government of Iran,
today the United States, together with our allies and partners, has reached a historic understanding with Iran.
A major challenge with nuclear negotiation isn't how you reach a deal with President Obama and President Hassan Rouhani, it's how you reach a deal with supreme leader, the real power in Iran, and the United States Congress. Getting those two to meet and agree will almost never happen.
If anything is certain, it's that each time the US and Iran meet, both nations have a lot of history to overcome.